life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace.
Welcome to Let's Talk Justice. It is Tuesday, November 14th. I am Jade Williams, Policy and Advocacy Specialist at Jamaicans for Justice. I am not joined by my co-host, Mikkel Jackson, Executive Director at Jamaicans for Justice. She's off doing non-radio JFJ work, so we look forward to her rejoining us next week. We have a fully packed show today. We have two topics that we're going to be covering, both of which are topical in terms of our current news cycle. So we will be talking today about unpacking the rise of rape and incest against minors in Trelawny. That will be our first topic, and in the second half of the show, we will talk about the developments that have taken place in the Joint Select Committee reviewing the Child Care and Protection and other acts related to mandatory minimum sentences for children. So that's our show for today. But of course, before we start, we talk about our headlines of the week, so our past news stories this week. First thing that we're going to touch on is the bomb threats that have gone out against several institutions, high schools, and I've recently heard another public place here in Kingston has received another bomb threat, to which the JCF is currently responding. So I don't know if my producer is familiar with this, but I can't recall a time in our history where we have been dealing with an issue of this kind. So it will be interesting to see how the JCF will be able to respond using their intelligence and training. I see some news articles talking about the possible mental health issues that may be affecting the perpetrator, and again goes back to one of the deficiencies that we've identified in terms of our social services, where persons with mental health issues are kind of left to their own devices and end up being a detriment to other persons in the society. So we hope that this is something that can be resolved sooner rather than later. I know people are terribly fearful, and it has been extremely disruptive for some of the students across the island. The second thing, which is our second topic for the show, so I'm not going to talk too much about it here, is the mandatory minimum sentences for children. Last week, the Parliament would have met, well, the Joint Select Committee would have met twice, Tuesday and Thursday, I believe, to discuss those proposals. And at the end, there was a majority in agreement with a couple of different tiers, a 30-year, a 15-year, depending on capital, non-capital murder, mandatory minimum sentences for persons between the ages of 14 and 17. And JFJ, along with other advocates, have been vocal from the beginning that mandatory minimum sentences should not be applied to children, and where they are applied, they should be extremely low, and even in those cases, there should be room for judicial discretion. So we hope to have that discussion more fulsomely towards the end of the show with Betty and Blaine, who is also a child advocate and CEO and founder of Hear the Children's Cry. The final thing that we're going to talk about in terms of our news cycle is those horrific murders that took place in St. James and the response to those murders, which was the institution of an SOE. And my executive director and those above me in the organization has already made the organization's position clear, but we continue to reiterate that the use of state of emergency as a crime-fighting measure is clearly not the long-term solution that we need. St. James has been under state of emergency almost every year since 2018. There are several ZOSOs in St. James, at least two, and at this point, we have to consider what other strategies can be employed, such as increasing our police's capacity and ability to do their investigations, as well as creating an environment for citizens to be able to come forward with that information. So our witness protection programs and those kinds of protections that we have been advocating for are the long-term crime fighting strategies that we would want to see. And this comes on the back of several cases that would have gone through the court and cost our taxpayers already millions of dollars due to illegal detention under state of emergency. So I hope again that we can focus on a proactive rather than a reactive approach as we continue to develop our national crime fighting strategy. So that is all I'm going to say for now on our headlines, and I will go straight into our Did You Know for today, which comes directly from the Child Care and Protection Act, Section 62, I believe, and it speaks to the rights of a child in a place of safety. So a child in a place of safety, or a children's home, or in the care of a fit person. So all of these are instances where the child is not in the care of their biological parents. And these children have certain rights that are listed within the Child Care and Protection Act. And these include, but are not limited to, the right to be fed, to be clothed and nurtured according to minimum standards, to be free from corporal punishment, to receive medical and dental care when required, and psychological care as a part of that medical care, and to participate in social and recreational activities that are appropriate for that child's ability and interests. So these rights are designed to help a child who is in state care maintain a similar standard of living to a child that is not. And these are not, as I said, limited. There are more rights under Section 62 that belong to a child in state care. And finally, we will do our trivia question for this week, which is: which agency is responsible for the care and control of children in state care? So to respond to the trivia question, you can, of course, send us a WhatsApp at 2397583, or you can send us a message on our Instagram at JA4Justice. Now, at the start of the show, we said we had two topics to discuss this week, and the first, both harrowing, but the first is particularly so, and deals with unpacking the rise of rape and incest against minors in Trelawny. Now, what we have been seeing is that the parish of Trelawny is facing a disturbing surge in cases of rape and incest involving minors, prompting media attention to the situation. Now, a recent investigation carried out by another media house focused on the community of Litchfield in particular, where there were at least 3 recent cases of incest reported, and residents only spoke openly about the prevalence, residents spoke openly about the prevalence of fathers and stepfathers as perpetrators in these offenses. Now, it's said that this is a long-known issue, and I'm sure anecdotally many Jamaicans, especially from more rural areas, can attest to this being an issue that has been pervasive in our culture. However, there is an alarm being raised as to the extent in which it appears to be happening now. A serious crimes report coming from the constabulary force, Jamaica's constabulary force, indicated that 14 reported incidents took place in the parish since the start of the year, and that is an increase of 5 compared to the same period last year. And we'll be joined by DSP Winston Milton to give some more insight as to what are the trends that they are seeing in that division. Now, this increase is particularly alarming for us at JFJ, why we decided to speak about this topic, as we've been observing the trends over the years. And in comparison to 2022, there were a total of only 22 reports. So seeing 14 already in just one division is cause for concern. So to discuss what is happening, how we can address it, and what are some of the gaps in that framework to address it. We are joined by Superintendent Milton from the Trelawny division of the JCF. We are joined by Children's Advocate Diane Gordon Harrison, and we are also joined by Dr. Claudette Crawford Brown. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you so much for joining me. I will start with you, Superintendent Milton. If you could just give us an idea of what the trends are that you have been observing, the main perpetrators, if there are any particularly alarming things that we should be looking out for.
All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon to your listeners also. All right, first let me begin with a positive. Since we have been highlighting the social hill within the space, we have seen a gradual reduction in the frequency of these incidents because of some initiatives that we have put in place. It is nowhere near satisfactory. Let me emphasize that. However, it is trending downward, which is, to me, a positive indicator. Our concern arose out of the fact that when we did an analysis of the victims, the majority of the victims were young persons, persons who were under the age of consent, which is 16 years old. The perpetrators, in most instances, were also known to the victims because these were persons in a position of trust. We're talking about relatives, particularly, close relatives within a particular yard or household, neighbors, and in some instances, in the case of incest, fathers were the perpetrator. Consequently, our clear-up rate in relation to this category of crime, is trending at 100% because the victims are usually known. But of concern to us, though, is the emotional and psychological trauma that these young people, are likely to undergo because of the experience, these negative experiences that they have had. So we believe, as a law enforcement agency, that we need to be proactive on one by one, putting it out there so that persons can be aware, and also so that the community can be aware that this is not the norm. Even though there's some, prevalence of this particular, deviant social behavior, it is not the norm and should not be condoned. So that basically is what, spurred our, action.
Thank you so much for that context. And just for our listeners to understand, when you say your clear-up rate is 100%, what does clear-up mean for...
All right. So in relation to reports made to us, we're able to identify, investigate, identify, and arrest the alleged perpetrator. And so far, in relation to all the reports made to us, we have been able to arrest all the perpetrators.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that context. So, Dr. Brown, I want to move to you quickly. Actually, we're coming up on a break, so I'm going to pose a question and we'll take the break and you respond. But I heard Superintendent Milton talking about the kinds of perpetrators, that they are known to the victims often, that they tend to be related to the victims or even close relatives of that victim and live in the same household. So when we come back from the break, I just want you to, from a psychological standpoint, kind of shed some light on why we would be seeing this trend in terms of who the perpetrators are and how we can identify signs that this is something happening in the household that we are in. And I ask for all of you to stay with us as well until we come back from the break. So we'll take the break.
Imagine your advertising dollar reaching your Caribbean and diaspora target beyond borders in a single rotation. It happens only on the bridge. Call now to advertise 876-669-5000.
At Guardian General, we believe you can keep driving on the road without driving up your insurance premium. Simply because our third-party policies are made to fit your pocket perfectly and give you peace of mind. Plus, you get extra benefits such as windscreen coverage and further discounts when you pay your premium in full. Pay online or at any Guardian General office island-wide. What are you waiting for? Call us at 888-468-3474 for a free quote today. Live safe. Live easy.
Bar, club, and hotel operators, effective the upcoming 2024-25 licensing period, you must submit proof of the following in order to have your premises licensed for any BGLC activity: a spirit license for bars and clubs, hotel license for hotels. Retailers and wholesalers must present a trade license. Contact your local parish court for information on how to get your spirit license at parishcourt.gov.jm or call 876-754-8331.
A message from the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission.
No borders, no boundaries, just the sound of good music.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans by justice.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. Today we're unpacking the rise of rape and incest against minors in Trelawny, and we are joined by Dr. Claudette Crawford Brown, Superintendent Milton, and the children's advocate Dan Gordon Harrison. So, Dr. Brown, before the break, I was asking, from your perspective, why would we be seeing perpetrators such as close relatives, fathers and stepfathers being involved in these offenses? And what are some of the signs that we can look out for in our own household to prevent these kinds of issues?
Okay, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to place the context in which I'm responding in terms of who am I. Some people may not know who Dr. Crawford Brown is.
Yes.
I am an retired academic, senior lecturer in clinical social work in the Department of Sociology and Social Work at the university, and I'm now retired. I'm also director of the Institute for Caribbean Children and Families, where I train social workers and guidance counselors. So I wanted to put it in that context.
Thank you so much.
In terms of answering your question, right? Now, I would like to pick up on something very quickly. You said, what is happening? Why do we have close relatives and family members who are perpetrators? And the second part of the question was, could you just remind me?
Yes. What kinds of things can we look out for?
And what do we look out for if we are parents listening in?
Yes.
Well, the first thing I'd like to mention is that the issue of close family and friends being perpetrators is a global phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But there are issues within the cultural context of the Jamaican context that one needs to be aware of. And that has to do with issues relating to poverty, the proximity of individuals to each other, where we have the one bedroom situations where children are in some cases aware of or made to sleep within a bedroom where there's sexual activity going on, and so because of those kinds of issues, sometimes it predisposes some children to sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. Now, the other issue has to do with the fact that those persons who are perpetrators, who are pedophiles, who are persons who are going to abuse children, will gain the trust of children easier. And in fact, it is more damaging psychologically to the child to be abused by a close family member. And unfortunately, we get this happening a lot in the Jamaican cultural context, because you get individuals who feel that you have fathers and stepfathers who pay for the child's school fees, or because of what we call serial monogamy, mm-hmm. You have several mothers who have a baby father with 5 children with 5 different baby fathers, and one may be in the house, and he's looking after a child who is not his own, and therefore he will abuse the child, thinking that I can do this because I'm paying for this child. So you have that cultural issue. Yes. You have other cultural issues which have to do with the acceptance of sexual abuse. So I must beg to differ from the inspector when he talks about the trend going downwards. I would not take comfort in this, because I have been teaching in this area and working for 40 years, 4 decades. And Westmoreland St. Elizabeth has been a hotspot for over 3 decades. Okay? And so we can't take comfort in the fact that, yes, some cases are going down. We have to look across Jamaica, and if you look across Jamaica, particularly in rural areas, we will find this tendency for relatives to abused children. The other issue has to do with the absence of mother. As you know, I'm the grandmother of the barrel children syndrome. Once mother is out of the house, all the males tend to think that this is okay, this is free reign, it's time for me to be able to move in. So cousins, brothers, uncles, all of the above think it's okay to move in on a small child. When you look at the data over the years, and this was documented in my book in 2010, Children in the Line of Fire, we find Jamaica and the Caribbean being one of the few regions in the world where the ages of rape and sexual abuse are younger and younger. Most of the rape in the UK, for example, when I did my comparison, occur 18 and over. In Jamaica, our rape and sexual abuse data tends to be of the younger age group. And this has to do with the fact that children are more vulnerable, easier to rape, easier to coerce into sexual activities. That's one answer to your question. The other issue, therefore, just links to this. Parents, therefore, have to be much more careful. Just yesterday, I was in a household where a young 3-year-old child was dropped off after school. And the taxi drivers, please mothers, please parents, warned the taxi driver. The taxi driver dropped off a 3-year-old at the end of a lonely road to go in to meet her mother. Her mother is a domestic helper. Mother had to travel maybe 5 minutes or so to get to the gate. The man dropped off the child and let her just walk in by herself on a lonely road towards her gate. So we have to be much more careful and be sensitive to the fact that Jamaica is changing, and we can't relax and know everybody takes a village, therefore it's okay to leave my child. We have to hand over child, adult to adult. So that's one of the things parents have to be aware of.
Okay, Dr. Brown, I'm going to ask you to pause really quick. Let me just move really quickly to...
These are just some of the basic things that parents look out for. Be careful about who you leave your children with and the handing over from one stage to the next. Okay. That is what I would say.
Thank you so much. And we're going to come back to you, so please don't go. But I wanted to quickly bring in Mrs. Gordon Harrison into the conversation, because we're talking a lot about clearly issues of child protection within the household, where the persons who are responsible are the parents or the relatives of the child. And clearly there's a deficit in what we should be, in the way how we are practicing those child protection activities. So I wanted to ask Mrs. Gordon Harrison, what, if anything, can our parents do, and what, if anything, can your office, is your office doing to assist or to empower parents to be able to think more carefully, as Dr. Brown is pointing out, about the protection of their children and their safety?
All right, so well-placed question, Jade, and I want to endorse certainly the last set of comments that Dr. Crawford Brown made, because it really is about having parents and adults who are in a domestic situation understanding that the vulnerability of children simply demands that the vigilance that these adults display doesn't wane in any way, and that they're always thinking 10 steps ahead of the possibilities of what exposure could cause. And so for me, the need to empower parents to understand that role, and then to have practical ways in which they can actualize that role, those strategies are really central to seeing if we can improve the rubric of protection. So we use, for example, at the Office of the Children's Advocate, different ways that we try to interact with parents without usurping the roles of other organizations that are already established to deal with parenting. So we collaborate a lot, for example, with the National Parenting Support Commission. They're particularly active during November, but even outside of November, there is the continuous training of parenting mentors who operate at the community level, and we ensure that we're involved in that interface, because it doesn't make sense that you are boosting up parents, but they don't understand the why, so that kind of collaborative approach is very useful. Also very important is that of our own volition, because parenting and children rearing go hand in hand, and we speak for children and really push their best interests, is that we use a lot of social media engagement to give practical bite-sized bits of information in small droplets that makes it very relatable, very easy to understand, and therefore very easy to implement. Another thing that's important is the consistent engagement with persons at the community level. How can we engage the man in the street who is not necessarily a parent at a school, so they don't have a PTA to go to, or they think they don't have the time and it's not priority for them? So how do we engage them through community avenues in the highways and the byways? And so, for example, our OCA Do Road initiative is one that seeks to target persons who are not necessarily engaged in structured environments to be going to, fancy town halls and that kind of a thing.
Yes.
And then there's also the more traditional of the town halls and the PTAs and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much. It is certainly comforting to know that the efforts are out there and that there is an increased level of access to information for those parents. So thank you, Mrs. Gordon Harrison, for that. I wanted to go quickly back to Superintendent Milton if he's still with us. And I wanted to ask him, I am seeing something suspicious in my community in relation to a child. What do I do?
All right. Before I answer, though, let me clarify the basis on which I made my initial comment. My comment is basically confined to the Trelawny space. So, to put it in that context. All right. First thing, there are several agencies that you can reach out to include the JCF, and we really are encouraging persons to reach out to us. You also have the CPFSA, that they can reach out to. I must say that so far we have been engaged, in a multi-agency approach with a lot of outreach projects in order to reach people, particularly in the affected areas, both in a formal and informal way. From a policing perspective, we have been doing what we call walkthrough on a weekly basis, and the narrative that we bring to our external clients are basically, skewed towards the challenges that are emanating out of that particular environment. And so again, we have several target groups that we have been engaging. And one of the things we're encouraging people to do, if you're in a community where you suspect that a child is being abused, because listen, they're very vulnerable. Ensure even if your suspicion is not founded, report it to us. Let us investigate. All right. So that is what we are encouraging people to do. Ensure that you bring it to the attention of the relevant organization so that the appropriate investigation can be done.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Milton. So we basically have 2 minutes left in this segment. So I will ask Dr. Brown. Well, I'll ask each person to give their final words. I'll start with you, Dr. Brown.
Okay, thank you so much. Just wanted to shout out Ms. Harris very quickly. We've been on so many of these programs over the years, and Lord, the work of the superintendent. I'm very pleased about what's happening. Looking over a 40-year period, the police are really getting involved. Just a quick word on issues relating to what do we do to get seeped into the culture this notion that it is not okay. I would just like to suggest that we move into the area of packaged videos that could be used in our tax offices, in our bars, in various places where our men and women are, and organize it in such a way so that the message gets through into the little every nook and cranny. That's one thing of our populace in the communities. The final other thing I wanted to mention very quickly is the need for what do you do once the child has been abused. I would like to suggest that we ramp up our training in play therapy and trauma intervention, because it is so very common in our schools, in all every aspect of the child's life. The child is in danger. But what do we do? I think we need to help parents to understand there are places. So CPFSA is one agency. There are private agencies that do this, but we have to get those guidance counselors up, upgrade their training so that they can do trauma-based therapy, trauma-based intervention. And one of the things that's available now in Jamaica, which was not there 10 years ago, is play therapy training. Structured play therapy training has to be put onto the level of training once the graduates have come out of teachers training college or wherever they go to get their training. Social workers, guidance counselors must get play therapy training to help the kids to cope, not just the victims, but the perpetrators too, some of which are children. That would be my last word.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crawford Brown. Mrs. Gordon Harrison?
Right. So my final word as well has to do with building the awareness and then empowering parents to understand that they do have the capacity. So there is nothing called a perfect parent, but there's nothing called a parent who has no hope. My position is that the starting point is a recognition that your child is important. And while different people have different parenting styles, so different rates of success, parents need to understand that no matter how fractured their parenting style is, they still have the capacity to be the best parent to their child. And so there's no harm in seeking help. There's no harm in looking at the packaged videos that Dr. Crawford Brown, has said that we need to move in the direction of. And there's no harm in being a part of a community of people to discuss, I have this challenge, how can I improve? Because what we want is for parents and caregivers who are already connected with children to be able to build their capacity to care proactively and in a way that doesn't disrupt the family structure, because we know that children do better in loving families and not institutions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gordon Harrison. And finally, Superintendent Milton.
Okay, just improve awareness of the situation and, educating particularly, the groups that they've been part of, particularly the children who are most vulnerable. So it's important that we continue the education, because that process has begun here in Trelawny for both the likely victims in terms of the children and the parents.
Thank you so much. So thank you all for joining us. I think we just had a very important and poignant discussion, and we look forward to seeing the improvement that comes from some of the initiatives that we would have discussed here, and hopefully implementation of some of those that we have not yet seen. So thank you all very much. We're going to take the break, and we'll be back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Take
Have
care.
a good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
The new KFC Nuggets. Delicious, crispy, juicy, original recipe nuggets. With KFC Nuggets, you'll never settle for less. The time by KFC Nuggets is
1:33.
Ooh la la. I see what I want at Phosphorus Christmas in November sale. November 20 to 30. Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. Come get your wires, breakers, chandeliers, flood lamps, LED bulbs, standing fans, and so much more. Shop Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. You can't afford to miss it. Come shop. Come save at Phosphorus Christmas in November sale. November 20 to 30. See you there at Phosphorus.
We all know the benefits of drinking water and keeping the body hydrated. Drinking alkaline water helps improve the blood's viscosity, which in turn helps the blood flow more efficiently through the body. DK Spring Water is alkaline water. DK Spring Water, bottled at the head of the springs in pristine Buff Bay, Portland. Available in 280 milliliters, 500 milliliters, 1.5 liter, and 5-gallon bottles. Call 627-9114 to order yours today. DK Spring Water. Taste it, know it, love it.
KFC, news flash, everybody hear this. KFC bringing you the brand new nuggets. Nip it, bite it, enjoy it. Made with real chicken, there's no other like this. It's a game changer. This is what we want. Choose the original recipe flavor. Tastes so good. KFC finger licking good. Brand new nuggets.
the new KFC Nuggets. Delicious, crispy, juicy, original recipe nuggets made with 100% white meat. With KFC Nuggets, you'll never settle for less. KFC, the real nuggets. It's finger-licking good.
Out of many, we are one. One Jamaica on the Bridge 99 FM.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. the people's champion, champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. So we're in the second half of our program today, and our second topic is on the mandatory minimum sentences that have been proposed for children under Section 78 of the Child Care and Protection Act. Now, our last parliamentary sitting would have seen the committee agreeing to the proposals, and will be moving forward with preparing their report to go to the parliament. So to discuss the effect of this, well, we would have known already JFJ's advocacy around this issue. We've spoken about it quite a few times on the show, most recently, I think, last month. So to join us to have a further discussion on this issue, we have Miss Betty Ann Blaine, who is the CEO and founder of Hear the Children Cry. Miss Blaine, are you with us?
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me on.
Hi, thank you for joining us. So first things first, I just wanted to know, from Hear the Children's Cry perspective, is there any challenge with the proposals as they were?
Well, Hear the Children's Cry, through our subsidiary, Child Watch Legal, which is a group of lawyers that work with us on legal issues affecting children, both here at home and abroad. Mm-hmm. We made a submission. Child Watch Legal, on behalf of Hear the Children's Cry, made a submission to Parliament a couple of months ago, where we stated our opposition to the call by Justice Minister for minimum mandatory of 20 years. We are opposed to that. Mm-hmm. We made that very clear. We made a very good submission. We looked at other jurisdictions outside of Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And here is what's interesting. At a time when other countries are looking to reform the situation in prisons, especially for juveniles, to make it, to provide rehabilitation and support and so on. We're looking to increase the penalties. I don't understand that. Other countries are looking to decrease. And I don't understand how you could want to propose locking away a child, even for a very serious crime as murder. And we understand that murders are very, very serious crimes, right?
Yes.
So we understand that, but I can't agree with the proposal for minimum mandatory 20 years. You can't lock away a child, should not lock away a child for 20 years. How do you do that? No parole for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And Hear the Children's Cry is vehemently opposed to that. So we made our submission in Parliament, We made it very clear to the parliamentarians that we are not in support of this. I believe the Jamaican people are with us on this issue. Children, when you work with children, mm-hmm. there has to be room for rehabilitation. That's just standard. That's a given. That's a given, and that's been our work, my own work, for almost 40 years. There's so many young people. We had that really successful program in Grand Spen, which interestingly is Mr. Chuck's, the minister's constituency as well.
Yes.
And we had a lot, it was for unattached males, 15 to 24, and a lot of them had been gunmen and had been involved in criminal activities, and they've turned their lives around completely. One of them has been working with us at Hear the Children's Cry for years and years, over 10 years now. Mm-hmm. And so we know experientially, because we have done this work for a long time, that when you reach out to children and young adults, you treat them with love and respect. You provide support for them, the kind of support they need.
Yes.
In the case of Grand Span, we provided remedial education, we did life skills training, we did a whole batch of support programs, and I can't tell you how many of them have done very, very well and given up their lives of crime, criminality. So I just want to take this opportunity, and I'm very happy you're focusing on it as well, JFJ, that we want to say to the minister, look here, just wheel and come again, think this through. Let me tell you, children, I oftentimes say violence does not fall out of the sky.
Exactly.
It's a developmental process that starts usually in early childhood. What has been happening to Jamaican children is that from the youngest age, even from their toddlers, they're fed on a regular diet of violence. So they learn it at the youngest age. I don't know that video that people have been talking about. I made some comments about the mother, and where the mother flung that little baby onto the street like it were a bag of garbage. And that's a lot of children are exposed to that kind of violence every day. And so when you live in a society where children are victims of this kind of violence, exposed to it day in and day out, then you can't just lock away children if they commit crimes like that. So the other thing I want to say before I have to jump off, I'm sorry, is that I've asked a question. What does Jamaica know? What do we know? What do the parliamentarians know? What does Justice Minister know about children who have committed murders, who are already incarcerated at Rear Cobra Juvenile Correctional Center? And have they spoken to any of them? I mean, clearly we're going to have to do that kind of research before we look at amending any legislation to find out who are these young people, who are these children. I would imagine they all had dreams and aspirations as children and as young people. And but we don't know. We don't know because we've never spoken to them. To the best of my knowledge, we've never done that kind of research. And so I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I would like to call on the parliamentarians to think this through again. Justice Minister, I'm saying, sir, wheel and come again, look at it, and let us recognize we can't treat children this way. We can't. It's an abomination. You can't lock away a child for 20 years without parole.
Thank you so much. We are certainly in agreement with many of the things that you said. And one of the things that we've been pushing in our own submissions as well is, one, are we solving a problem that may not need to be solved? And two, if it does need to be solved, are we actually looking at the right solution? Because we have not done, as you have rightfully pointed out, that background research to support why even 20 years? Why that number? So we don't even have that kind of supporting information to see why the proposal was made in this way. And unfortunately, it seems to be going towards just a general trend that we've been seeing to harsher penalties for certain offenses, because we would have seen as well under the firearms legislation, there's a mandatory 15-year sentence. And when we did our presentation to the Joint Select Committee, one of the discussions that was had was because they've already instituted that mandatory 15-year sentence, they would have to go higher than that if they're proposing a mandatory sentence for murder. So it's challenging to see what exactly is driving this particular legislative change. And we're certainly in agreement that background research is necessary.
Right. Well, I'm happy that you are on board the organization and that we need to call upon other advocates. Jamaicans, we need to talk to. Most Jamaicans, I think, are with us on this issue, by the way. And so I am happy. I agree with what you've said. I have to jump off, unfortunately, because I have another commitment. But I just want you to know that I'm in support of your position And I would like the parliamentarians to do just not only just to do the right thing, but do what's necessary to ensure that if you're going to change a law, you get all the information.
Yes.
You'll be, so thank you so much.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
So that was Miss Betty Ann Blaine, a CEO and founder of Hear the Children's Cry. We'll take the break, and when we come back, we discuss our trivia and a few other comments on our last topic.
Hi, I'm Ronald Thwaites, and I'm the host of The Public Eye and The Open Mind on the Bridge 99 and Irie Jam in the tri-state area. This program will tell you the truth about life backyard. Fair, open talk, no gossip, no slander. We want to listen to your concerns, also want to help you with your problems in JA. We at The Bridge rate you and affirm our oneness as citizens of this blessed land we love. So join us now on Wednesdays on The Bridge, crossing the waters, linking Jamaicans and Jamaican lovers everywhere.
We up, yeah. Free up, yeah.
Calling all bridge builders to the Bridge 99 FM, your global partners for outside broadcasts, connecting you from Jamaica to the world.
Where will we go?
From Kingston to Portmore, downtown, Spanish Town, Canada, USA, and as far as Dubai, we keep you connected across the 7 continents of the globe.
Call us at 876-630-3153 for information about partnering with the Bridge 99 FM.
That's 876-630-3153 to take your outside broadcasts to the world.
Yo, dancehall can't start when the money must shut the content.
Right. Introducing the Bridge 99 FM Dance Hall Chart Show.
I are the one and they are what?
All about our weekly top 10 music countdown, our Bridge Spotlight featuring artists and music producers, and our chat with the Bridge Jocks and music director.
We bring you in on the action. Just send your videos every week for your favorite artists on the chart in our Fan Affair segment. Do it WhatsApp 876-551-5782.
Jogger!
It's new, it's authentic, it's trend-setting, and only on The Bridge. The Bridge 99 FM Dance Hall Chart Show, hosted by Shell.
You know the vibes. This Friday at 1 p.m. at the wickedest thing since dancehall. You know the thing go. We're bringing the vibes to the where, to the what, to the world.
No borders, no boundaries. Just the sound of good music.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. So we've had 2 conversations today. One a bit brief, but we'll do a quick recap. So today we have discussed the rise of rape and incest in Trelawny, and we were joined by several guests, including the children's advocate, the JCF, and Dr. Brown from the University of the West Indies, or previously at the University of the West Indies. And we certainly unpacked some of the challenges that are affecting the rise of incest in that particular community, but also some of the things that we can be doing to ensure that incest is not rising in our communities. And that would include the careful consideration of your child's protection in all circumstances. So that was an important discussion that we had earlier. And just now, we had a very quick but important conversation with Betty Ann Blaine from Hear the Children's Cry on the mandatory minimum sentencing proposed and accepted by the Parliament for children. Now, if you have been listening to the show, you would have known that Jamaicans for Justice position on this is that mandatory minimum sentences should not apply to children under any circumstances. We believe that children have a unique possibility for rehabilitation, and therefore that possibility must be acknowledged, and the judge must be allowed to have discretion in cases where the perpetrator is a minor. Now, this discretion does not mean that the child will automatically get a lenient sentence. What it means is that the court will be able to carefully consider all of the circumstances and give a just sentence. And that just sentence would consider the future potential of any child perpetrator, which is important. If we are looking towards now a mandatory minimum sentence of 20 years, we have to also look at the context at which we are in. We have, according to Commissioner Anthony Anderson last year, more than 800 of our major crimes between 2020 and 2022 were committed by minor perpetrators, children. And it cannot be that our children are particularly prone to criminality. So one, we 100% need to be looking at the root causes for this involvement. Why are we seeing so many minors involved in crime, in conflict with the law? And one thing that Ms. Blaine said that we agree with, social interventions work. We have seen social interventions work time and time again. Investment in social programs such as PATH, programs that allow children to be able to receive additional social support, is what will deter the influence of criminal actors in their communities. We have to acknowledge that part of the reason that we see this involvement is a lack of social services in these communities, and that is the role that the criminal actors in the communities fill, and that is why they're able to get that loyalty. So we have to take back those communities with our social support to ensure that there is no space for those negative actors to fill, and therefore we would have our population moving towards a more orderly and sensible composition. So we are certainly disappointed that in the debate, the majority of the Joint Select Committee would have agreed to institute a mandatory minimum sentence. And we certainly will not pause in our advocacy on this issue. We'll be following the bill all the way to Parliament, and hopefully we will be able to see some changes before the amendment is fully passed. But again, and same thing that we said in relation to the state of emergency, we need to be looking at our crime issue from a fulsome perspective. Of course, there will be instances that we must be reactive to, that we must respond to. But in terms of what our long-term solutions are going to be, we, one, need to take the time to look at what is driving our crime rates, and then move towards putting systems in place to mitigate those drives. So we hope our parliamentarians are listening, and if they're not, we will be bringing the conversation back to you again, don't worry. And we hope our listeners are paying attention to the conversation and will be able to say to their MPs and to their leaders that this is not a section that we would support, and be able to influence the parliament in that way. So we look forward to seeing the conclusion of the debate and the substantive report that comes out of that committee. So now we will give you our trivia question winner and answer. So the question for trivia today was, what agency is responsible for the care and control of children in state care? And some of our normal winners came with CDA, which is the Child Development Agency. Unfortunately, we were looking for the new agency that would have replaced the CDA, which is the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. So Nicola Christina is our winner on Instagram, and we will definitely reach out to you with your prize. But we're winding down to the end of the show. I saw in our staff group another bomb threat would have been made in the Kingston area. And I am urging our listeners to stay safe on the roads. There is likely a possibility of some traffic and blockage on the roads as a result of this. So try to stay safe as you move forward. I know that for this month of November, there have been quite a few initiatives in relation to children. And as we continue that focus, I certainly hope that persons will engage with the National Parenting Commission and those other agencies to learn more about that trauma-based response that we've been talking about throughout the show. Finally, we can talk a bit about our upcoming activities at Jamaicans for Justice. So we are at November 14th, starting on November 25th. We will be having a bevy of activities. Our social media pages will be more active than usual, but also we will be having some in-person events that will be happening throughout the period. So I'm actually scrolling through from my little calendar here so I can tell you all what is upcoming for the team. So on December 5th, we'll be doing a special episode. So I hope you can all tune in, as it will be an extremely important conversation. We will be talking about the Caribbean Court of Justice, and we have invited and will be having Justice Saunders from the court here to shed some light on what the kinds of cases the court takes and what having the court in Jamaica would look like. On December 8th, in the halfway tree, we will be having our big community intervention. It is a part of our Human Rights Day celebrations. Human Rights Day is on the 10th, but we are giving you all your Sunday, and we will be out at the Halfway Tree Transport Center from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on December 8th, and the day will be full of activities. We will be having games, we'll be having prizes. We will be having a marching band opening the day, but we'll tell you more about that as we get closer to the event. There will also be plenty of information, and there will be media engagement throughout the day. So you'll be able to follow us on some media outlets and certainly on our social media platforms. And we will be using a hashtag on the day. So listen out for the hashtag next week, and you'll be able to participate virtually in the event. Now, we will also be having some other events that are invitation only. So if you have received your invitation already, we hope for you to respond quickly so we can set up those persons who will be our attendees. So I am shouting out all those persons who have been invited to our future events. Please respond to Miss Parkinson's email. She needs to know that you're coming. But our human rights celebrations will be in full swing starting November 25th. So we look forward to you all joining us on that. I see my producer. My producer is plugging everything. But as a part of the event, we will be having some public education, social media postings that will involve explaining your rights, explaining some of the provisions under the Domestic Violence Act, explaining some of the other provisions in law that protect victims of sexual violence, domestic violence, and gender-based violence, as well as general human rights conversations about how we can strengthen our human rights framework and what already exists in the framework for us to use now. So you can keep watching our pages, and you will be able to take part in those discussions or lives. For example, on rights, you will be able to send in your questions, and we will be happy to answer them. On December 10th, we will, of course, have our normal December 10th event, which is by invitation only at the Pegasus Hotel, and it is our Human Rights Day event. Some of these events that are private will be streamed, so you will be able to participate remotely. So we look forward to you all joining us throughout the celebrations, and certainly on December 8th, we hope to see you all represented at the Halfway Tree Transport Center between 1 and 5 p.m. It's going to be a great day. So thank you so much for joining us. This was Let's Talk Justice, and we will be back next week at the same time at 1 p.m. And hopefully next week I will be joined by my co-host, Michael Jackson. But I am Jade Williams, Policy and Advocacy Specialist at Jamaicans for Justice, and we look forward to our next show. Thank you.
Justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created the by the creator. for equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
Watch the man, you don't know this advice at the end present for The Bridge 99 FM connecting. We said that station, you're a leader. And we said, get him like a time, a like a feature. Under the moonlight and sense of meaning. The Bridge 99 FM, the representing.